as a business owner, you hear so much information online about debt to start your business, to grow your business, from Dave Ramsey saying never use debt to Grant Cardone saying use debt as much as possible and everything in between. So I'm uniquely qualified because I started my business with no money, no connections, no family money, no investors. So I've had a relationship with debt in my business and in, I would even say, my life starting out. I think a lot of people, debt can be a necessity, but I have learned a lot over the last 10 years of scaling and growing my business and, buying a big beach house with some debt. And again, balancing the pitfalls, balancing the pros and cons, and making it through the other side. But I'm making this video because I'm hoping somebody starting their business can watch this, or maybe somebody that is thinking of using debt in their business. I feel like I can give you just my personal experience. This is not financial advice. I'm not saying you should do what I did. I'm just going to share my honest experience about taking on all different types of debt along the way to grow my business, and hopefully it can help you. So when you're starting a business, you have usually no money, you have maybe some experience, but you don't necessarily have a huge amount of capital to start. And I learned this from a great entrepreneur who says the best things you need when you start a business is you need a great location for, let's say, an in-person business. But let's say not. You need a great maybe idea, a great product, great service, and you need ample capital. So debt, capital, money, they're all somewhat related. So he said you need great location or a great service and ample capital. So what that really means in my experience is when I started my business, I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any background. I didn't just get a bunch of referrals. So I needed money to market my business, do simple things like get a website, pay for Facebook advertising, get it off the ground. And so I got a business credit card, right? That's kind of your first line of debt in your business because, you can get them for 0%. They are still personally guaranteed. And I'll go over that in this video. But when you're looking at business credit cards, there's a lot of misinformation online about, how it's a business credit card and you can get it 0%. And if it doesn't work out, you don't have to pay it back. No, if you read the fine print, almost business credit cards are personally guaranteed. So treat it as personal debt. But from my experience, the asset of a business credit card when you're starting out is that you can use it to fund website, marketing, coaching, whatever you're doing to get your business off the ground. Because also you can get that 0%. And when you carry a balance on your business credit card, it doesn't necessarily affect your personal credit. And again, I'm not saying that's a guarantee. I'm saying from my experience, I've carried business debt almost the entire history of my business, and my credit score is about 801 right now, and it's continuously grown over time. So in your business, when you're starting, that's probably the first kind of debt that you can get, because also the requirements are pretty slim. It's not a line of credit. It's not a business loan. So, and it's mostly based on your personal credit score, depending on the card. So I got a business credit card and I used the 0% because I was able to, spend money. And then I could, again, have ample capital, ample time to let the investments I made in my marketing and my business come to fruition. Right? They're not going to work right away. So you want time to let the business grow. You want time to make mistakes so that you can make money and then pay the card back. And again, I'm just sharing that that's how I started. I'm not saying you should start that way, right? Maybe you have some money to start with. Maybe that's better. But when I am starting a business or I'm telling somebody, giving them advice on when they're starting a business, you need ample capital. So if debt is a part of that equation, that may be fine, but you also want savings, you want runway because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to have a brand, you don't have a reputation, you don't have, usually a lot of experience. So I'm not trying to dissuade you. I'm saying lean into that by saying, okay, I'm going to figure this out, but I need time. And time equals money. If you have money in the bank, if you have some business credit cards, it lets you relax a little bit. You're not so urgent and desperate. So that's where I started in my business. So I started with the business credit cards and I grew through that. But then I also said, okay, some things you can't pay for with a credit card. When you get staff and you get employees, you have to pay them with something like Gusto, whether they're on payroll or a 1099. Usually they need cold hard cash. And, even a business credit card, you're not necessarily taking cash advances on it. So my next step was getting a business line of credit with the main bank that I worked with when I started my business. And the great thing about a line of credit is that two things. Number one, you can draw from it and then you can replenish. It's not a long term commitment, right? A business loan is a 5-year commitment, and I'll talk about the SBA loan that I got later. But an SBA loan, any type of term, TERM loan, term loan, that is a business loan. You're saying, hey, here's 100 grand. You're paying me back over 5 years. And usually you can't necessarily pay it back early without some penalties. Like they want their interest no matter when you pay it off. So a line of credit is great because it gives you flexibility, whether you're paying staff or whether you're investing in marketing or whether you're doing something that it's kind of short term and you need a quick, bridge of money. It's great for that because you can take the money out, put it back in 2 weeks, and even if the interest rate, which it probably will be, it'll be probably above 10%. You have to switch your mindset as a business owner. If you're investing in marketing, you might get a 3x ROAS, return on ad spend. 3x is 300%. Roughly, I'm not saying that's a guarantee or anything, but in many marketing campaigns, you can invest $1, make back 3 in revenue. But if you're borrowing from your line of credit at 10%, again, that's people can get in trouble with that because they max out their line of credit. They invest everything into marketing and maybe it doesn't work. It happens. So I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying there is a certain equation where maybe you want to put your gas pedal full throttle on the marketing you're already doing, where you're reinvesting revenue, and maybe the line of credit can give you a little boost, or maybe you don't even use the line of credit to spend on the ads. Maybe you use your savings and your revenue, but the line of credit, from my experience, it gives you that peace of mind that, hey, maybe the marketing doesn't work right away, right? Maybe you're selling a service or you're doing something and it takes months to get the client. The line of credit is great because you're like, okay, if I need to pay expenses, the money's there and I can give this time to grow. Again, when we're talking about ample capital, ample runway, you want time. Time is your friend in business. You don't want to put yourself up against the wall and everything has to work the first 90 days, you're going to go bankrupt. That's not a good formula. So the line of credit is a great tool in my experience for just to have. Again, you can set it up and you might not use it until you need it. But it's better to set it up when you don't need it. Banks and all these institutions, when you're maybe struggling a little bit, that's the last time on earth that they want to give you any access to money. So the best time to get the line of credit is when you don't need it. Again, you might get it, you might never use it, but at least it's there. Because again, you're not paying interest on it just from having the line of credit. So, okay, I got the line of credit, but it was a small amount relatively. And then I said, you know what? I was like 4 years into my business. I was starting to really grow. I was figuring things out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in. I'm going to get an SBA loan, which was a long-term term loan. I got an SBA loan and I said, hey, I'm going to get this money. It was 150 grand and I'm going to invest it all into my business, all into my marketing. And I said, it has to work because that was more money than I I had saved. So I borrowed more than my savings and net worth by far. And again, I felt, even looking back, like it was a worthwhile risk because I had already been in my business for a few years. So I knew what was not worth the money, how much I really needed, what I was specifically going to spend it on. Because again, when you talk about these SBA loans, you're paying back like a mortgage, you're paying back a lot of interest and principal every single payment, every single month. So you want to make sure with your cash flow, like, okay, I'm going to take this money, I'm going to put it to good use so I can get a return on that investment to not just pay the monthly payment, but maybe pay back some principal and of course profit from it and make the risk worthwhile. So that's where, when people, in my opinion, not advice, when they start talking about taking on huge loans to open up a restaurant or a franchise or something that, like, it is a huge upfront investment, and to be frank, they might have zero expertise or zero experience in that field, that can get a little tricky because you're investing all this money up front. You don't know, is it too much? Is it not enough? You have no track record. So, when possible, again, in my experience, I was able to spend 4 years in my business figuring things out with relatively low risk. All I had was really my business credit cards, and I had, a small line of credit or two. So I got the term loan, I got the SBA loan, I invested heavily into my marketing, and I really scaled the business beyond that. It was a great risk for me, but again, I didn't start my business with a term loan. I invested all that money into marketing once I really knew what I was doing. And even then, I made some mistakes. So as we grow the business, I get bigger lines of credit. I increase the limits on my credit cards because, again, the best time to do all of that is when you don't need the money. So I didn't need it at all. But that's when, as you get better lines of credit, better financing, you can't just say, hey, I'm making $2 million a year. They want to see financials. They want to see, like an accountant who prepared your balance sheet and your assets, your liabilities, and your bank statements. And it gets a little more complex at that point. So you, at that point, want to put all that together, and you want to get the bigger lines of credit, the bigger credit cards in terms of the limit when you don't need it. Again, this does take a lot of discipline because a lot of people use credit cards and then they don't have the money to pay it back, and they max them out. The goal is to use a small percentage, if at all, but the goal is to have the money, because you never know where your business is going, if it's, in a great season, if it's trending towards a downturn, if it's going to continue to grow. And the whole point of this video is to educate you on, debt isn't a killer. It's not the devil, in my experience. At times it's necessary, right? Like when you want to usually buy a house, very few people are going to buy, a great home, especially if they're younger and they have no family money, no inheritance. They're not usually going to buy it without a mortgage. That's debt. If you're starting a business and you really want to grow it, at a certain point, there's going to be a great opportunity to invest in your business. It's going to take capital that you might not have. Again, that's a decision that you have to make, but I'm just giving you the reality where both sides are somewhat true. Again, debt isn't the answer. You shouldn't just max out on debt. You have to have a great business. You have to understand, if I'm going to take on this debt, where is it going to go? Is it worth it? What am I using it for? And at the same time, again, debt isn't amazing, but it's great to have, again, access to liquidity, lines of credit, credit cards when you don't need it, because you might need it. There might be an amazing opportunity, or you might have a bad season in your business. It happens. If you're in business long enough, it's not going to go like this. I promise you that. So going back to another point I mentioned about personal guarantees, everything you do with your business debt is personally guaranteed, or unless you're a billionaire or nine figures, or even a multiple 10-figure, or $10 million entrepreneur, everything you're doing is personally guaranteed, meaning If the business fails, they're going to go after your house, your wife, your husband's money, your bank account. That's a risk you have to weigh. And that's why, again, my goal with making this video isn't to scare you. It's also not to motivate you to get a bunch of debt. It's sharing that I couldn't have gotten where I'm at today without debt. But I, from day one, strategically weighed, how much debt do I have? What are the monthly payments? How much liquidity do I have? How much cash on hand do I have? I have this whole spreadsheet that I might even share that maps out everything, because I might even at times say, wow, I'm really investing into marketing. Let me just pull from my line of credit just to have it sitting in my bank account. I'm not even using the money, but it gives me peace of mind that I have more than enough cash on hand. Because again, I might pay 10% on that money for the line of credit annually. So if I only hold it for a few months, it's not that much relatively. But I'm also investing in marketing that might get a 4x return on ad spend for marketing. That's 400%. It might. So again, I look at debt in my business as it gives me time to figure SHIT out. It gives me time to figure things out, and it gives me time to let things come to fruition. I heard this, I don't want to take credit, so I didn't come up with this, but I think it's some type of Chinese story, and it talks about when you plant the seeds to bamboo, it takes 5 years to get something to come out of the ground for bamboo. It takes 5 years to see something. Then I think after like 96 days, it can grow 10, 20 feet tall after that point, right? So I think when you're looking at capital and debt, it gives you time to figure things out in your business. Even this house, see, it's not about you have to buy a house with cash or load up on debt and get a mortgage with only 3% down. We put down a great down payment relatively. We're making extra principal payments. So you see, debt is a tool. It's not something you should be scared of. It's not something that you should love and fall in love with. Again, it can kill your finances. It can kill your business. It can kill your cash flow. It can also provide opportunities and leverage to do things and grow your business and do things maybe in your life that wouldn't be possible without it. So the main idea of this video is that you have to understand what debt you're using, why you're using it, what is the goal of it, and how to protect yourself from the downside. Because of course, if debt works in an investment in your business, the upside will be even better. But the goal is, how do you protect your downside? How do you not over leverage? How do you not be over optimistic? I would rather somebody be a little more paranoid, a little more, cautious when it comes to using debt, even if it's a line of credit, 0% business credit card, or any other debt. It's better, in my experience, to strategically use it as a tool. Don't fall in love with it. Don't think it's the enemy. Find a middle ground. And again, ultimately, this is my experience. It's totally up to you in terms of what growth you want to have, what risk you're willing to take. And again, I just want this to be an authentic video for any entrepreneur at any stage. So thanks for watching this video. If you like the video, like it, subscribe, do all of that jazz. I want this to reach people because again, I want people to learn from this. Hopefully they can gain at least 1 or 2 golden nuggets. So thanks for watching this video, and have a great day. Thank you.